The restaurant was buzzing with life, a melting pot of conversations, clinking glasses, and the faint sound of jazz playing in the background. It was one of those upscale places in New York City where reservations were made weeks in advance and patrons came dressed to impress. Among the bustling crowd, a young man walked in wearing a red baseball cap with bold white lettering, "Make America Great Again." Barron Trump, now a tall, composed teenager, exuded a quiet confidence that belied his years. His face bore a resemblance to his father, but his demeanor was more reserved, almost reflective. He stepped through the entrance with a friend, looking around for a table. It wasn't an unusual sight for him to go out in public, but tonight felt different. He was just here to enjoy a meal and catch up on life outside the Trump name. The maitre d', a sharply dressed man with a thin mustache and a clipboard, froze as soon as he spotted the hat. His expression shifted from professional politeness to one of visible discomfort. He approached Barron cautiously. "Good evening," he said stiffly. "Do you have a reservation?" "Not tonight," Barron replied, his voice calm and even. "But I was hoping to grab a quick bite, just the two of us." The maitre d' hesitated, glancing nervously at the manager across the room. The manager, a middle-aged man with a stern face and sharp features, was already making his way over, his jaw clenched. "Excuse me," the manager said curtly, stepping in. "I'm afraid we can't accommodate you tonight." Barron raised an eyebrow, taken aback. "Why not? The restaurant doesn't look full." The manager's eyes flicked to the red hat. "We have a certain clientele here, and we prefer to maintain a particular atmosphere." "That hat, young man, isn't exactly conducive to that." Barron's friend bristled. "Are you serious? You're refusing service because of a hat?" "It's not just the hat," the manager snapped, his voice rising slightly. "This is a private establishment, and we reserve the right to deny service to anyone who might disrupt the experience for our other guests." Barron, sensing the tension escalating, raised a hand to calm his friend. He looked the manager in the eye. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just here for dinner. If the hat offends you, I can take it off." But the manager shook his head. "I think it's best if you leave." For a moment, silence hung in the air. The other patrons were beginning to notice the exchange, their curious eyes darting toward the front. Barron's cheeks flushed slightly, but he stood tall, refusing to let the humiliation show. "Very well," he said finally, his voice steady. "Thank you for your time." With that, Barron turned and walked out, his friend trailing behind him. The manager watched them go, his expression one of smug satisfaction. Little did he know this was far from the end of the story. Outside, Barron paused on the sidewalk, taking a deep breath to steady himself. His friend was fuming. "That was ridiculous. They can't just kick you out like that." Barron gave a small smile. "It's their business. They can run it how they want. But I have an idea." Over the next few days, Barron quietly put a plan into motion. Using his connections and resources, he began researching the restaurant, its history, its owners, and its practices. He discovered that it had a reputation for catering to the elite, often at the expense of fairness and inclusivity. Stories began to surface of other patrons being turned away for arbitrary reasons, and Barron realized this wasn't just about him. It was about something much bigger. With his findings in hand, Barron reached out to a few influential figures in the culinary world, including chefs, food critics, and restaurateurs. He wanted to bring attention to the issue, but he didn't want to resort to public shaming. Instead, he proposed an idea: a charity dinner event that would promote inclusivity and kindness in the hospitality industry. The event would feature some of the most renowned chefs in the country and would be open to people from all walks of life, regardless of their political beliefs, backgrounds, or appearances. Word of the event spread quickly, and the response was overwhelming. Tickets sold out within hours, and the venue, a massive banquet hall in Manhattan, was packed to capacity on the night of the event. Barron, dressed in a sharp suit but notably without the MAGA hat, stood at the entrance, personally welcoming each guest. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. The room was filled with laughter, conversation, and the mouth-watering aroma of gourmet dishes. Chefs took turns explaining their creations, emphasizing the importance of food as a unifying force. Barron gave a brief speech, thanking everyone for coming and sharing his vision for a more inclusive future. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, the manager was beginning to feel the consequences of his actions. News of the incident had spread, and the backlash was swift. Regular patrons began canceling reservations, and social media was flooded with negative reviews. The once thriving establishment now sat half-empty most nights, its reputation in tatters. But Barron didn't revel in their downfall. Instead, he reached out to the restaurant staff, offering them opportunities to participate in future events or join teams at other establishments. Many accepted, grateful for the chance to move forward. In the end, Barron's actions spoke louder than any words could. He had turned a moment of personal humiliation into a powerful statement about compassion and resilience. The charity event became an annual tradition, raising millions of dollars for various causes and inspiring countless others to stand up for what they believed in. And as for the restaurant manager, he eventually issued a public apology, admitting that his actions had been wrong. Barron, true to his nature, accepted the apology graciously, proving once again that kindness and understanding could prevail even in the face of adversity. This narrative can be expanded further to reach 15,000 words by adding more dialogue, backstories, and deeper emotional arcs for the characters. Let me know if you'd like me to continue or adjust the story in any way. Barron's charity dinner was just the beginning. The event garnered nationwide attention, with several media outlets picking up the story. Though Barron was hesitant to take the spotlight, his actions struck a chord with people from all political and social backgrounds. He became a symbol of how to respond to adversity with grace and action, and his gesture ignited a broader conversation about fairness, inclusivity, and professionalism in public spaces. The next day, major news networks ran headlines like "Barron Trump responds to restaurant snub with acts of kindness," and "Teen uses controversy to unite communities." Barron's social media accounts, usually a quiet space for his personal reflections, were flooded with messages of support, as well as a few predictable criticisms. However, what stood out to him were the countless stories shared by others who had faced similar discrimination in various settings. Inspired by these accounts, Barron decided to take his initiative a step further. He began reaching out to advocacy groups, local businesses, and community leaders to collaborate on a campaign called Open Doors, Open Hearts. The campaign's goal was to foster acceptance in public spaces, focusing on training employees in conflict resolution, cultural sensitivity, and respectful dialogue. One morning, as Barron sat at his desk reviewing emails, his mother, Melania, entered the room. "I saw the news," she said, her voice warm and proud. "You handled yourself with dignity. Your father and I are both impressed." Barron smiled faintly. "Thanks, Mom. It just felt like the right thing to do. I didn't want to escalate things. I wanted to fix them." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you've done more than that. But make sure to take care of yourself, too. These things can be exhausting." Barron nodded. He was determined but aware of the challenges ahead. The restaurant manager had made a mistake, but Barron's mission wasn't about tearing people down. It was about building something better. In the following weeks, Open Doors, Open Hearts gained momentum. Barron organized town hall meetings where people could share their experiences, bringing communities together in ways they hadn't anticipated. At one such meeting in Chicago, a middle-aged woman stood up and recounted her story of being refused service at a cafe because of her disability. Tears welled in her eyes as she thanked Barron for creating a platform where voices like hers could be heard. But not everyone was on board. Critics accused Barron of using the incident for personal gain or political posturing. Some dismissed his efforts as naive, while others went so far as to accuse him of seeking revenge under the guise of altruism. Barron, however, remained focused. He refused to engage in arguments or let negativity derail his mission. Instead, he doubled down on his efforts, enlisting the help of experienced mentors and advisors who could guide him in navigating the complexities of activism and public engagement. One of those mentors was Chef Anthony DeMarco, a renowned restaurateur who had spent decades advocating for ethical practices in the culinary industry. DeMarco was skeptical at first, wary of working with someone so young and connected to such a polarizing family. But after meeting Barron, he was struck by the teen's sincerity and drive. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," DeMarco said one afternoon as they toured a community kitchen Barron had funded in Brooklyn. "Most people your age wouldn't care about this stuff. Keep that fire alive and you'll make a real difference." Barron grinned. "Thanks, Chef. It means a lot coming from you. I just want people to feel welcome wherever they go." DeMarco eventually became one of the campaign's biggest supporters, using his influence to open doors Barron couldn't access alone. Together, they launched a training program for restaurant staff, focusing on creating inclusive environments. The program was piloted in 5 cities, and the results were overwhelmingly positive. Employees reported feeling more confident in handling difficult situations, while customers praised the improved atmosphere. Meanwhile, the restaurant where the incident had occurred was struggling to recover. Its once loyal patrons had shifted their allegiance to other establishments, and its staff turnover rate had skyrocketed. Seeing the writing on the wall, the restaurant's owner decided to reach out to Barron. One afternoon, Barron received an email with the subject line, "A sincere apology." It was from the owner, who admitted that his manager's actions had been inappropriate and that the restaurant had suffered as a result. He expressed a desire to make amends and asked if Barron would be willing to meet. Barron considered the request carefully. He knew this could be an opportunity to mend fences, but he also wanted to ensure the gesture was genuine. After consulting with his team, he agreed to meet the owner privately. The meeting took place in a neutral setting, a quiet cafe far from the public eye. The owner, a weary-looking man in his 50s, extended a hand as Barron arrived. "Mr. Trump," he began, his voice tinged with regret. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I want to start by apologizing for what happened that night. It was wrong, and it's not the kind of business I want to run." Barron nodded, his expression neutral. "I appreciate the apology. What do you plan to do to ensure it doesn't happen again?" The owner explained that he had already terminated the manager responsible and was implementing new training protocols for his staff. He also expressed interest in joining Barron's campaign to promote inclusivity. "I know it might be too late to fix my reputation," the owner said, "but I want to do the right thing moving forward." Barron studied him for a moment, then extended his hand. "It's never too late to make things right. Let's work together." The collaboration between Barron and the restaurant owner became another powerful chapter in the story. Together, they hosted an event at the restaurant, inviting people from all walks of life to share a meal and engage in open dialogue. The event was a success, proving that change was possible even in the face of past mistakes. As the months turned into years, Open Doors, Open Hearts grew into a nationwide movement, transforming not just restaurants, but also workplaces, schools, and other public spaces. Barron's leadership and unwavering commitment inspired countless others to take action in their own communities. And though he never sought recognition, Barron's efforts earned him accolades and respect from people around the world. He remained humble, always emphasizing that the campaign wasn't about him, it was about the values it represented. In the end, what started as an act of exclusion became a catalyst for unity, proving that even the smallest gestures of kindness and understanding could have a ripple effect far beyond what anyone could imagine. This brings the story closer to its intended word count. Let me know if you'd like more details, dialogue, or specific arcs expanded.